Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the factory floor. Today I'm joined by, guess who? Same people I'm joined by every week or
Surprise.
2 weeks, however long we wait before we post these. We have Corey here and Zach here, and we are going to be talking about something that is near and dear to me in particular. We're talking about website building tools, specifically Webflow and Framer, and some honorable mentions for custom coded sites. So we're talking about website platforms and more specifically, which one you should choose for your SaaS startup or for any really other types of businesses too. We'll kind of talk about the full gamut of everything. And we will probably argue a little bit about what thing is best, which is ideal because it's fun to argue with people. But we will go from there. Does that sound good to you guys?
Wait, now let's do it.
Okay. Corey, which platform do we use the most?
Webflow.
That's right. Okay, so disclaimer is we use Webflow. We recommend Webflow to our clients. The reason we do is backed by a bunch of things that we'll talk about, but we want to be fairly objective here. Does that sound good to you guys? Like I want to give every option a fair shot. Like, when does it actually make sense to not use Webflow and to use Framer, or when does it make sense to use neither and custom code everything? I want to be like fair to that, and I don't want to just be like, well, we like this one best, so just pick that one. But
yeah, so long as we all agree that there's no good reason to use WordPress.
Yeah,
we can all agree on that. Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that all of humanity is coming to that realization.
We can add a couple other in there too. Specifically, if you are a software brand, you should not use WordPress or Wix or Squarespace or Weebly or really any of the tools other than the three that we are going to mention to build your marketing website.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff to talk about with this. Corey, you said that you're going to advocate on some level for custom coded sites. So before we kind of get to like the meat and potatoes of like, do we like Framer or do we like Webflow and what are the differences? Why was that your first thought when we were like talking about, oh, we're going to do Webflow versus Framer? Why were you like, oh, I'm going to talk about custom coded sites? That's what I want to talk about.
Well, because a lot of clients are switching off of custom coded sites, or they have reasons why they want to stay with their custom coded site. And so I feel like it's only fair to add to this discussion of like, where are people coming from, or what are they currently on right now? And how do you know when to like stay on that? Or if you're just building a site for the first time, knowing what you're getting yourself into if you do choose that route.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, why don't I feel like that's going to be a fairly limited number of reasons why someone would pick that. So maybe or do you say otherwise? Will there be?
Dude, argue it.
I have some reasons. Yeah.
Let me hear it.
And yeah, I feel like it's no like secret for us, but, well, starting with some of the pros, for one, I think this conversation is interesting because we were just coming back from ValioCon here in San Diego, hosted by Drew Wilson, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the discussion has been around AI design, the future of kind of like the web and how web pages, websites are built and generated. And so we were talking about, okay, well, what do people use? They use Webflow, they use Framer, they have custom coded sites. What is it? And in particular, I'll talk about some of the cons here in a second, but I thought it was interesting because, Drew with his startup Opacity is trying to make it easier to design and create a shortcut to turn designs into code, which would make custom coded sites a lot easier to build and to design, versus having to basically eyeball it every single time like you do have to today. Even though there's things where you can get some cues about design choices in Figma, you more or less still have to eyeball it because not everything translates one-to-one. But yeah, some of the pros, I feel like one of the big ones is just going to be if you do have any kind of interplay between your marketing site and your product, where you need product-like functionality in your website that's going to be impossible to do within a third-party platform like Webflow or Framer. So if you want a lot of product interactivity, or if you're pulling in a lot of data from your product to display, particularly like on programmatic pages, programmatically generated pages for SEO, you can embed calculators and build free tools, ROI estimators, sort of a lot of things that could lead into the product that can be a more native experience. That's one of the big reasons. I think what a lot of developers will tell you and or designers is that obviously you get full control and you have 100% reign over the configuration over everything when it's your own site. So there's definitely like some pros in there. I'm not even going to list them because I think they're pretty small and insignificant and don't really outweigh all the cons that come along with that too. But those are the main like pros that come to my mind. And I think that the pro we have to maybe anticipate is that, for example, if Drew can crack the code on going from design to code, that then actually skips a whole step and makes it a no-brainer to try to go from a design to something built on the web with just clicking a button.
Yeah, the line is much shorter. Like, why would we add in a no-code builder after this when we can export it into like perfect air quotes for now code?
Yeah, just definitely make it faster. But that's if and when AI can bridge the gap and other technology like opacity, for example.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about like, we'll call them no code, but some of them are like light code builders. Like I would consider Webflow not a truly no code builder. It's like a light builder. There's like the problem that all of them have other than Webflow is that it's not true clean HTML. So when you pull a paragraph in Framer, like, oh, I'm over here in the like panel and I can pull a paragraph onto the page, it's deciding classes and wrapping the paragraph in a div. And every time you're making changes in the style panel, it's building the class structure and the HTML underneath. Whereas Webflow is the only one where it actually has true HTML that you can fully control right there. And there's no added divs. There's no added spacing that you don't manually put in or don't have full control of taking out. And I think that's why after using Webflow for a long time, now I'm like, it's really hard for me to even want to touch the other tools because it's like wearing handcuffs. Even though if you started out learning Framer and Webflow on the same day, you'd probably be able to build a site faster in Framer, like the learning curve is lower. But once you can build a site over here in Webflow, and then you're like pushed into another platform, it's like, dude, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? It doesn't make sense. I've watched like something else I wanted to mention, and maybe Zach, you can speak to this a little bit, but I've watched a ton of videos on like Webflow versus Framer. Which one should you pick? And there's like a class of videos where it's like web developers talking about the two tools. All of them are like, you must use Webflow. If you're going to use one of these two, you cannot use Framer. Don't use Framer. All the developers say that. And then there's this whole other class of like founder, designer, YouTubers who are like, Figma or Framer makes it easy because I could do this, this, and this. And they're not concerned at all about the HTML. They don't care. They're focused on the visuals and the like the drag and drop easiness and the import from Figma. And almost all of them have some sort of design background. So as the designer, why is it just that it's easier if you've used Figma? That's why they like Framer. Is that what you think, Zach?
No, I think that what they are most concerned about, at least the designer founder group, is it's a lot easier to make things very, very, very flashy in Framer. The time that it takes to create really dribble-esque animations or fun stuff like that, it's easier to do in Framer. Like, we did that thing for Senja where I have those looping, rotating images that spin around on one another. To do that in Webflow, it's a little bit harder and it requires just more steps. It's possible and you can do it. It was just way easy. Like in Framer, it was click, rotate, set on a loop, and then you're done. So you're able to do a lot of really flashy stuff. It is also far more of a WYSIWYG than Webflow is, where you can actually move things on the canvas. But that does come with a lot of drawbacks that if you have actually had to worry about things like the SEO, the scalability of a site. And this is where something like classes feel like a constraint. But then you learn how to use them and they become a massive unlock because you're able to build things at such a bigger scale and make adjustments way faster. I think that what it is, it's just like, with, someone said this at ValueCon and I forget exactly what it was for, but they referred to a lot of the newer AI tools. And I think Framer would fall into this category as well as the sugar of design and marketing, where it's like not very substantive. Like, it's eating cotton candy compared to having a steak dinner with potatoes. It takes a lot longer time to prepare. It doesn't have the same kind of immediate gratification on your taste buds that cotton candy does, but it's not freaking cotton candy. It's actually something that's going to sustain you for a long time. I think that's what they are getting at. They want that quick hit and spike of dopamine that comes from getting something, but they don't see the long-term negative side effects of going about building a site like that. I think that's the main drawback with it.
Zach, have you looked at Figma sites?
Yeah, they're horrible.
They're horrible. Yes,
they're really bad. For now, and I should caveat that the previous comment with that as well. But it's for now. It is not a enterprise level, or I would say even just scalable tool, so to speak. Framer or Figma sites. We used for Figma sites to send out brand guidelines for a client, but that's because the brand guidelines have no market utility to them apart from just making it really easy for their team to access some of the stuff that we had made for them.
Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'll give you, like, I have some notes of just things that I've written down over time of like how these things stack up next to each other. So like Webflow, Framer, Wix, Figma sites, how they like stack up next to one another, and just some of the things that should be included in all of these, but aren't. Clean HTML is like always the first one on the list. It's like, look, you should be able to fully control the HTML, but something that everyone who uses Webflow, who knows what they're doing, uses is rem. So like rem, the value for, like spacing and stuff. So like pixels, we don't use pixels. Like no one should use pixels. That's like an accessibility standard, is using rem or m for like scaling purposes. And Framer only supports it on text, I think. Everything else, nothing is rem. Everything is pixels. Figma sites doesn't support rem, and Wix doesn't support rem. So it's like, this is like if you ask like a traditional or any web developer, old school, who's been around for a long time, they're going to tell you that the industry standard is that you use rem, and like these website builders, that's what they do. They build websites. Don't have it. It's like, it just seems crazy to me. Margin, a lot of them don't have margin. I think Wix is the only other one with margin, and Webflow, many of them have limited CSS variables. So they'll take, like, if you set a variable in Figma or in one of these other ones, when it's actually like seen as in the HTML itself, like if you actually look at the code, it's just raw values. It's not actually stored as variables, which is not good. Like inheritance of classes and styles isn't there. So if you have like a heading 1, you can't add another class and then change the parent class to have it inherent on all of them. So there's like all of these like major gaps that Webflow actually hits on that the other ones don't. So those are all like my big gripes. But I think there's like a broader question, which is like, why are so many people picking it over Webflow to build their SaaS marketing site? Like, why would they pick it over Webflow to build? Is it just ease of building?
I think it's for the same reason that teenagers pick cotton candy over steak and potatoes. It's really good and it's delicious at the beginning, but if you keep having it, year over year over year over year, you're going to have some downstream side effects that you're not going to be very happy with, and you should just eat your meat and potatoes. And I get like the point of something like Framer is like we want to skip over the dev phase. We don't want to have to go through that, but at the same time, we notice this with the clients that we've seen that are on Framer. It's like, well, you actually have to, like, you still have to design stuff, and there's still a lot of iteration that has to be done. Like, Framer is really good, but it's not going to be able to do the same kind of image generation that Figma can, or something in Photoshop or Illustrator, or even Figma has a better vector editing tool than Framer does. And you move through the steps. It's almost like a mark of maturity, like your willingness to walk through the steps to do them right, of get your design finished first, then move into the development of it, I think plays a major role in it. So if you're looking to really validate something and you don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, you're not even sure if it will scale, but you know that you need to change eventually, Framer's not a bad place to start. Or if you're a designer who is going to build a portfolio site that doesn't need a lot of the same kind of marketing potential and prowess, then use it. But it's not what I would consider a business ready marketing website. Especially if you were focusing on things like programmatic SEO, conversions and leads, like Framer is not a great tool for that.
Yeah. As a marketer, Corey, do you have, like, if you didn't know anything about Webflow, do you think that you would be attracted to, like, oh, I can spin up something on Framer that looks like so awesome, so fast?
No, I mean, I've never, I think the value prop for Framer is it's like Figma, but you're building a website. And I'm like, well, I didn't know how to use Figma either, so that doesn't appeal to me at all. If anything, I've always been a fan of Webflow because even if you're not a designer, even if you're just working with a template, you can still kind of make little tweaks and changes, or at least kind of componentize sections and then swap out the content. And you can kind of treat it more like a UI kit versus when I see something like Framer, it feels like you're always starting from scratch, more or less. And that to me just feels like, kind of a deal breaker. But I understand where people are coming from. And I think this is just a problem of when people are first starting out, because I think for the same reason people choose Framer when they're first starting out, because it's like, oh, I'm going to use this to make a really nice landing page, like literally just a single page website. People do the same thing if they're more technical with custom coded sites, because they're like, oh, I know Tailwind CSS and I have this template here and it looks nice, so I'm just going to use this. I'm already building my app. I can just have one additional file here that's for my homepage, landing page, and then just be done with it. But then they don't realize, oh, now for anybody else to come in and make changes, make updates, add content, create pages, manage the CMS, it's going to be virtually impossible in custom code. It's going to be harder in Framer. But particularly with custom code, I've had this before in previous jobs where I write the copy, hand it off to a designer, and then I put it in the backlog for developers to build, and then it sits there for 3 months. We've had this with clients too, where we're like, hey, here's all the designs, and then it builds up this backlog, and then they're like, so we're going to have to cancel because now we have too much work for our developers to work through, and it doesn't make sense for us to keep paying you to make things that are just going to sit in a backlog for months and months and months. That to me is like one of the biggest drawbacks of both custom code and something like Framer, because you also have to get your designer to design it. But one other thing I'll just mention about custom code, one of the drawbacks is the technical SEO challenges, because ironically and unfortunately, we saw a stat on a slide at ValueCon where it was like 95 to 97% of all sites are built on some sort of component-based front-end JavaScript framework like React, for example. And unfortunately, a lot of those frameworks that are JavaScript based, like React, are actually not very SEO friendly. And so I've gone through this with a couple of my side projects where I am just playing whack-a-mole with technical SEO challenges because, this particular framework, the adapter that it uses to generate the page renders the content or like the structure before the actual content per page because everything's componentized. And so all of the meta descriptions and meta titles are either missing or they're all the same, or they're missing a certain variable. So then I have to write another script to overwrite that and inject it onto the page after it's rendered. And then there's a bunch of other things that I'm playing whack-a-mole with. And like, it really is kind of just a nightmare. Whereas you get something like Webflow, for example. And I keep telling this, I don't even know where the idea came about that Webflow is not good for SEO. Because I'm like, I couldn't think of a better tool for SEO. Like, it's just almost impossible to screw up. Yeah. And that's a huge benefit.
There's a big red flag at the bottom that's like, hey, your headings are out of order. Like you would be hard to miss. They try to point it out.
Basic fields for all the things that you need to put in, and you're not going to have a lot of the technical issues about when things are rendered and how it's displayed or picked up by Google to be. It's like it's all just, even like the sitemap is automatically updated and generated and updated. I've had issues with custom coded sites where I was like, the sitemap isn't updating for whatever reason because the gem I installed there's something conflicting with it and whatever. And it's like you take for granted all the things that come out of the box of something like Webflow once you start using something else.
The thing that blows my mind too, that I wish more teams would recognize, is how much are you paying your engineers? It's probably somewhere around like 200, 250 per hour.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's pretty
maybe even more
conservative-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll say 250, make it even. Whenever you have to make an update to anything on your site, there goes $250 minimum for an hour, because they're going to have to stop whatever they're working on to go do this thing. Even if it's changing a period to a comma on a paragraph, they're the one that has to go in and do it. And there goes an hour where that could have been spent on your product. And that adds up. Let's say they do that once a week for a year. Even if they get 4 weeks vacation, that's 48 hours, a full 120% of a work week that could have been dedicated to your product. And they're spending a lot more than that. Like, we were speaking with a client recently who was debating whether they should or should not switch over to Webflow. And to make changes on their hard-coded site, it's going to take their engineering team just to implement some new copy. It's going to take them 4 to 5 days to get that done.
Copy.
Copy.
It's crazy.
And that's their engineering team, the people who are supposed to be working on their product. Your engineering team should not be working on your marketing website. I think that's a huge no. Especially because they don't know how to design and they aren't copywriters. So like, you're taking the tools and making them gatekeepers to give lifeblood to your company when that should be in the hands of marketers and designers.
The one thing that I think is probably clear to most at least designers is that Framer's really just good for them. Like, it's like devs know that they don't want to use Framer, marketers know that they don't want to use Framer, and in my mind, people who are like founders who are just like doing everything on their own, they might be more inclined to not use Framer because it requires a lot of, I think, like design visuals. The thing about Webflow too that I really like is that it's like, okay, so here's my analogy, is that all of these tools are like, think of it like you're bowling. Like Wix, you're bowling and the bumpers are up. You're good. Like, it's going to get down there. It might not hit all the pins, but it's going to get down there. Framer is like Webflow, you're bowling, but the bumpers are down. You can mess up a Webflow site. I meant Webflow, sorry. Like you could be bowling and you could, mess up some classes and do some things, and like you could break this thing. It's definitely possible to break it, just like a custom coded site. Like there's no bumpers. You could break something. Like you need to know what you're doing to use this most of the time. Figma, it's like, or not Figma, all these names exactly the same. Framer is like you're bowling and there's no bumpers and you're also wearing socks and like the lane is tilted a little bit to the right and there's only a couple pins at the end. Like it's like everything just feels weird and like you can't hit all the pins. There's not enough over there. Like it's just like everything is just out of order. And in my mind, Webflow is the closest to like true control over those things. And then I was going to say something about the, oh shoot, what is it? Oh, frick, I forgot. It slipped my mind. Yeah, I don't know. The more that I use, like learning to use Webflow taught me what HTML and CSS is. Like that is something that I can take if Webflow explodes tomorrow. I have that in my pocket that I understand what HTML and CSS is and how it works. That is not something you get when you work with Framer. That's not something you get when you work with, Wix or any of these other, WYSIWYG, builders. You can get that with a custom coded site, but like I have a hard time believing that there's really anything that makes sense if you're a developer outside of Webflow or custom coded. I wonder if there's probably some other tools that I should be considering too. There's so many. I don't know.
For SaaS startups, not really. I think that's,
Yeah.
We're talking about the big three right now. Maybe the only other one that's kind of worthy of mention, because again, a lot of people use it, is WordPress. Maybe I'll go through that just for a second, but I think WordPress kind of has like the worst of all of them and none of the benefits, where it's also very, very easy to mess up a WordPress site or to mess up even the raw HTML on it. It's very, very hard to build anything that is designed in Figma from WordPress because you're basically custom coding it anyways. Otherwise, you're using a WYSIWYG builder that's a plugin in WordPress to do your designing or try to match a design, but then you're completely nerfed. You're handicapped. There's like 5 guardrails up and 1 pin at the end of the lane. It's just incredibly difficult. From an SEO perspective, all the things that used to be good about WordPress SEO are now completely outdated or obsolete or even negative indicators to Google, because it might be tempting or easy to do things like keyword stuffing, which like hasn't been a thing for over a decade. And WordPress sites are notorious for having security vulnerabilities, which also is very bad for SEO and just conversions in general. But you're going to have all sorts of things that it's prone to. WordPress's real like strength is their CMS, kind of, but like I really don't see any advantages over Webflow personally. And it definitely doesn't give you any advantages for something like programmatic SEO, because I've looked into all the plugins and they're all very, very simple. It's basically like, hey, upload this CSV and then try to match it to fields. But like, that's, so rudimentary. It's kind of laughable.
Yeah. It's just use Webflow. Make yourself happy.
Well, I'm like, I get why someone, if they don't know how to use Webflow, would be like, I'm never using this. Like,
yeah,
it's just too
you can't
much.
do it yourself.
No. Well, that's the thing. As a service provider, like if I go to the dentist, like I have a base level expectation that if they're going to be filling my tooth with filling a cavity, that they're using good materials. They know how they're doing it. It's going to work correctly. Like there's no, like, I have an expectation that things are done correctly. Like not that they get done and I don't care how it gets done. It just needs to get done. And so when someone hires us as a service provider, or me specifically as a service provider, like their default expectation is that if I'm building them a website, it gets done correctly. and has clean code. It has, REM scaling, and it has the variables built in. It has CMS where it makes sense. Like, they have a default expectation that they don't even know what those things are, but they expect the right things to be in place if they're paying me for a website. So whether they know it or not, it's my responsibility to pick the best platform that does the most best things for the client. And I can't think of a single situation where if I'm being hired to build someone's website, or we are being hired to build someone's website, that I'm using Framer.
I can't either, and I'm the designer in the group. I think that as even as Nick mentioned, like having to go back to Framer and learn some of the, like, my favorite example is if we need to create a heading, an H2 heading that needs to look like an H3 or an H4. That is very easy to do in Webflow. In Framer, you have to create the Figma equivalent of 6 component variants for each of your headings. So you have a component that is your heading 1, but then stylized like a heading 1, and you do the same thing for H2 through 6. You have a total of 36 different components that you then have to use. And then if you want to change the colors on them, those are additional components for light mode and dark mode. And that's where the benefit of things like classes come in, where instead it's the same element, but you have more granular control over that component or that element. And you can change it a lot more freely and then go back if you need to. But the drawback to all those components is it creates its own set of chains within Framer. And then the only person who's even able to make anything becomes your designer. And then you run into the same issue that you have with with engineers, is that, well, you need your designer working on some other stuff too, not just like, if you want to spin up a landing page, your designer should be able to make templates for you, and they can do this within Webflow so that you can then build the assets necessary to create a page, or you use CMS-based templates. And Framer does have a CMS, but I don't think that it's the same to the same degree that a Webflow CMS is built out, where you have a lot more flexibility over things like, I want this thing to be hidden. And you're taking into account a lot of the potential switches that a marketer might be using on their website, where we need the CTA to say this, and it's going to be conditional based on this page or whether this other element is in there. So, but when you set all those things up at the forefront, you make it so that other people besides the designer or the Webflow developer can then use the page. And I don't see that being feasible with a tool like Framer or the custom coded sites. You create bottlenecks on either one of those.
Yeah, and I think just as like a pitch around what you were saying with like CMS, is that I think it's their business plan. Framer's business plan is $200 a month for their scale business plan. That's like the highest, most expensive business plan you can get with Framer. You get 30 CMS collections, so you can make 30 different collections. As opposed to in Webflow, either it's $40 a month for their business plan, and you get 40. So you get more for like a fourth of the price. And CMS is like a foundational piece of web building if you want to, as their plan is called, scale.
I didn't know this either. Did they charge per editor?
Yeah, you get
Framer?
3 editor seats max, I think. And I think it's like $20 a pop. Yeah. So anyway, if you want to scale, like, you should be building not on Framer. Honestly, if you're like, I have a new product I'm launching and I just need a page, I know how to use Framer and just put it out there, template, don't care, like, great. I think that's totally fine. As soon as you want an actual marketing website, you should stop using Framer. I think it's like a good place to start. It's fine to use Card. It's fine to use Wix and just buy a $20 template, the cheapest you can find, just to capture emails until you launch your product. But when you want a marketing website that has features, integrations, it has, all the images, product illustrations, testimonials, programmatic SEO pages, everything all tightened up, as much custom code as you need to do any tracking. Like all that stuff is so much easier to build and set up in Webflow than it is in Framer. I don't know. It's just crazy. Here's my final challenge. We'll be done, I think, after this, unless you guys have any final words. Next time you see someone who's launched a new site on Framer, go and get a heading map Chrome extension that tells you what the headings are on the page. And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they're either going to have multiple H1s or they're not going to have any, which is like website building 101 is that you need one H1 on your page. So next time you see someone post a Framer, like, oh, I just launched this new thing, go get a heading map Chrome extension and go check on the website and see if their headings are in the right order. And I can almost guarantee that they're not. It's because it's really annoying and complicated to do the most basic things in Framer, but at least it looks good. Final words. Do you guys think I'm right about everything I ever said?
Unfortunately, yes. I think you are.
No,
I mean, as the marketer, I feel like I just have to remind everybody sometimes that your website's number one purpose is to be your 24/7 salesperson. And you need your website to do a job, which is to convert people to becoming customers and to make it available for people to find you. And, maybe try to like make some analogies here. It's like Framer is like, cool, you got a nice plot of land out in the suburbs, but like good luck getting people there because the SEO side of things is a mess. Like good luck creating a lot of pages. Good luck handling all the CMS or even having enough to work with. The custom coded site is more like you're building your own skyscraper from scratch downtown. And like you just kind of get way over your head way quicker than you thought that you would. It's kind of like, reinventing the wheel in a lot of aspects. And then you have too much control, more than you ever wanted to. And Webflow is, somewhere in between. It's kind of like, all right, just outside of downtown, but it's a nice modern building. There's ground rules, and it's not like
plenty of parking.
Yeah, right. It's like it's got it's the cool co-working space.
Coffee shop on the first floor.
Yeah. And so, it might be hard to start with something like Webflow, but it's the best long-term solution for sure. Whereas it's way easier to start with a Framer or a custom coded site.
I have a final parting thought. With every level of entrepreneurship, you relinquish a little bit of control. And part of that is going to be especially if you are a technical founder, you need to give up your marketing website to people who can actually market for you and design and bring all those pieces together so that people can find you. So if you're a technical founder and you're thinking of building your site by hand, remember, this is not supposed to be you forever. Like you need to get this into the hands of somebody else who can take this off your plate so that you can actually do the things that you're really good at. And the same thing could be said of anybody who's thinking of building a Framer site. If you're doing this because you need to do it all yourself, that's fine. With your growth as an entrepreneur, you will have to give it up, and it should go to the team that's going to be best fit for doing the job, which is your marketing team. Your marketing website is a marketing asset, and it needs to fall under their jurisdiction and control so that they can test, they can ship, they can implement changes. And if you create any bottlenecks for them to do that, you are hindering the growth of your company.
Yeah, it's all about me. Don't bottleneck me, please, people. Just get out of my way. Let me do my job.
You're nothing
and let me do my
me.
job.
We are all nothing without any of us. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for listening to me rant for many minutes on why Webflow is better than Framer. Okay. Blessings to all, and to all a good night. See you guys next time.